Alright, so this story is going to be about my first actual RPG, like, tabletop game. And I'd played, this was my... I don't think it was my freshman year of college. I think it was my sophomore. And I've been getting into card games, like, a lot recently. Before, it was just video games. I didn't do really much at all for RPG. My aunt, actually, when I was 13 or 14, sent me 2 copies of AD&D Adventures, like trying to get me into it, and it didn't really catch. Kind of wish I kept those. It was one of those ones that actually had a CD that if you did something specific on this map, that you would play that track from the CD, and they would talk and be like kind of weird. So it was whatever, cool. But yeah, my first RPG game was using Besem second edition Besem. And if you don't know what Besem is Big Eyes Small Mouth, and it's essentially an anime RPG format. And it used 2d6 for pretty much all of its rolls, all of its checks, and you always wanted to roll below your stat. You always wanted to roll low. You always wanted to get snake eyes. Boxcars are bad. And so I asked, well, okay, so what's the campaign? Like, I'm gonna need help building this character. What's the campaign? And it was something like, you're cops. Like, the world is essentially run by 6, crime lords, and you're part of a secret organization to slowly take them down. I was like, okay, cool. And so build your backstory. So I was like, okay, cool. And I got really into building this backstory. And part of the backstory was like, my dad had left this this weapon for me before he was killed in action, and I don't know much about this weapon. And I gave the weapon stats, and I had like 5 more points to put in this weapon, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. And the GM said, well, if you hold those points, at some point down the road, I'll do something with those points doubled. I'm not going to tell you what, or when, or for how long, or if it's just temporary, or whatever. But something will happen with it. And I was like, cool, do it. And the weapon I'd end up making, that, looking back, was kind of cool, at the same time really, really lame, was like this, like, if you picture, like if I put on, say, like this glove, and on both sides of this glove were like axe blades, and then down the middle I'd put basically a rifle barrel. So it was like, how there was like a gun blade? I basically made like a gun axe, and it wasn't that great. It wasn't a good shot. It wasn't a good melee weapon. But fuck, it was the first thing I ever made in a game, so whatever. So I had this weapon, and I'd built a backstory, but I didn't know how campaigns usually ran. First night of the campaign, it was me and one of the other players. This GM, he really liked giving individual players and giving them individual time for their story, doing it as a group, and doing it as small groups, like squads, and it was really cool. So the first time I played, it was me and my friend Pat. Pat had made a character with a mech, because it's Pat. Pat likes mech. You put mech in something, Pat likes it. It's pretty simple. I'm surprised there isn't a mech in my actual Sony, because he likes that to the extent that he likes mechs. And I'm pretty sure at some point it's going to be revealed that all PS3s are really mechs. But I digress. So the first campaign we play, the first game we play, me and him stumble across 3 like guys in like these kind of exoskeleton suits, basically burning down this shopkeep's shop and just kind of holding him there like, you're gonna do what the boss, blah blah blah. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, do they see us? No. Okay, I'm gonna hide behind this car. I'm gonna scope the situation. And Pat's like, well, I've got my mech. I need to power that up. I'm like, okay. So he sits there. He powers on the mech. And I'm sitting there, and I'm got my gun, and I'm like, well, what's happening? Well, they're still just holding him, like, yelling at him. You can't make out what they're yelling. And the store is still on fire. I was like, okay. So I look back. I was like, Pat, you ready? He's like, yeah, just go. I'm thinking, no, you've got the mech. I've got a shitty gun and a blade. You go first. This went on for 3 or 4 rounds, where both of us basically stood there, watched these 3 guys just scare the crap out of the 70-year-old man, and at the end of every round, the GM decided to remind us, the store is still on fire. So finally, I'm like, whatever, I'll run up and see if I do anything when I attack. So I'm like, I run up and I attack one of them. Okay, we'll roll it. And I roll like decent. He's like, yep, he's dead. I'm like, are you fucking serious? I've been hiding behind a car and all I could do was just run up and just kill him? He's like, yeah. So fucking stupid. And then Pat was like, oh, okay. So he finally rolls up in his mech, which has been ready for 3 turns, and just blows him up. And he's like, well, I'm like, well, is the old guy fine? He's like, well, yeah, but he's pissed. Like, why? And he's like, well, he made a roll. He made a roll? Yeah, for what? To see if he saw you guys. And he saw you. Standing behind the car. And his shop is still burning. So we go back, and I'm like, okay, so don't be afraid of combat. Alright, fine. That's fine. And we get a bit of storyline. We get some more storyline. And the next one is, like, we have to find these people being kidnapped. And my character is, like, really high on, like, his body. And he's high on his, what was it? Body, mind. I think the other one's spirit? I know there's 3 stats. Body, spirit, soul. He had really high soul, decent body, crap for mind. And so everyone's like thinking of these plans to find these, find these guys. Like, well, there's people being kidnapped in the city through these like black vans, and you need to find where they are. I'm like, okay. So yeah, the brainiac back there is like, okay, I'm gonna try, triangulate and this and do. He makes this whole ordeal, and GM's like, okay, fine, roll it. And he rolls crap, not boxcars, but he rolls like a 10. And I'm like, well, you whittle it down to like 10 possible locations. And it's like, okay, that's not that bad. So the next guy goes, and he's got, mediocre mind. He's like, well, how about I do this and this and this and this? And I'm like, okay, roll it. And he rolls like 11. So it's like, okay, you whittle it down to 8 locations. Gets to me. I've got a mind of 3. I am not the sharpest bulb in the crayon box. So I'm like, you said they're being kidnapped by vans with bars on the windows, right? Like, yeah. Well, I'm going to drive to all these locations and see if I can't see one of those vans in the parking lot. Okay, I was like, okay, if you really think they're that stupid. I was like, I think they're me stupid. I'm like, okay, roll it. So I roll. Get Snake Eyes. So he looks at the dice, looks back at me. Okay, well, the first place you visit, there's a van park right there with bars on the windows. Right there. In fact, you see duct tape on the ground. How do you like that? I'm like, I like that. Thank you for that. The dumb guy found the van because he went looking. And it continues on like that. And I eventually get some backstory. And I find out, like, my dad had this partner at one point. And, I talk to this guy, and I'm sensing, motive. I'm sensing lies. And I've got seeking suspicion this guy's going to dick me over later. I'm going to find out he did something. And he's going to be pertinent to my story. And we go on our merry adventures and kill things and snipe things and keep people from dying and just, do what you do in a campaign. Until finally we start going after the crime lords. Now, the crime lord tied to me was I want to say no, it wasn't the Japanese crime lord. It was the London crime lord. Yeah, it was the London crime lord. So we busted into his complex, and we're like taking out guys, and you know, we cleared the whole first floor. And this game's been going on for like 4 or 5 months. Like, it's taken a while, but you know, we're in college, we got time. So we're hacking and slashing our way, and you know, up on the balcony after we get through this first wave is the partner, you know, the guy that's tied to my story. He's like, you know, I thought you'd come, and, you know, yeah, you're right, it was me, and your dad was an idiot, and blah blah blah, and I'm gonna take that weapon from you because I need it for this plan, and no. So I'm like, oh boy, and I'm psyched. Because I want the rest of my story. I want to know what, you know, the holes that have been kind of left for plot holes in my character's backstory that I left on purpose for the GM to mess with. I want to know what they are. You know, I'm playing this for the story. That's why I really didn't care about, you know, the stats and how I built my character. My character wasn't that well built, but that's what I was playing for, was the story, to see what the GM was going to do with it, because he tells a pretty good story. So he's like, oh, okay, everyone come out and attack and do all this, blah, blah, blah. And so more guys come out. We're you know, waving through them. And half the, like, not half, like, a third of the party goes ahead to where we know the actual, like, the crime boss is. And we're left behind, and we're battling, you know, this guy tied to my story. And we're fighting. I'm like, well, Can I punch him to the point where you know, I knock him out? Like, and Jim's like, yeah, he's got low enough hit points, sure. I'm like, okay, roll it, knock him out. He's out cold. I'm like, great, fantastic. I'm thinking, okay, so we can, I'll arrest him, and actually I say I'm going to put handcuffs on him. Okay, so I'll put handcuffs on him. Like, we'll arrest him, take him back, and I'm telling the GM what I'm going to do. Now, one of the other people playing is the GM's fiance. She's getting really sick of this campaign. Not because it's bad, no. It's just taking too long for her, and she just wants it to be over. And she will take every measure to make sure that it's over. So what does she do? She looks at him and goes, is such and such, you know, prone on the ground? He's like, yeah, he's unconscious. Well, I walk up and I shoot him twice in the head. And I look at her with just these death-glaring eyes like, what the fuck was that for? Well, you know, he might regain consciousness again. I want to make sure we put him down. He was pertinent to, I needed to find out what fucking happened to my dad. I did find, like, in character, I'm going ballistic. And she's giving this straight face like, I don't fucking care. Don't fucking care. You know, out of character, she's like, I want the fucking game to be over. Fuck it. I don't really care anymore. And I'm just fuming. I'm pissed. This is why I played for so long, is to find out the story, and just killed my story. Killed it outright. To this day, I don't know what the story is, because he never told me after the game, because she just wanted to get the fuck out. Never found out. Never to this day found out what he had planned for my character. So I was pissed. I was really pissed. Oh no, and I have to go back a couple game sessions actually. No, actually no, I don't. This is when it happened. Yeah, scratch that. Never mind. So I'm pissed. I'm in this room with a bunch of the other party members and her just yelling at her in character and out of character. By this point, the other team had reached the crime boss's room, and they kick down the door, or one of the team members kicks down the door, and the first person in the room is my friend Jerry. Now, Jerry's a special kind of person. Like he's a smart guy. He is. He's a bit of a perv, and by a bit I mean a lot. And the character he made, and seemingly every character he makes, he likes to max out in something. There's no balance. He just likes to max out on one thing. In this game, he put like all of his stats into this one gun that I think had like maybe 2 bullets total. Just this huge fucking gun that couldn't hit for shit. But if it hit something, it cleared out everything else behind it. And its mom, and its dad, and its family. This thing did massive damage when it actually hit. But it couldn't hit anything. most we usually got was splash damage. So he busts in, and the crime boss is behind his desk, like, like doing the boss thing. And he's the boss of the room. The party really should have waited for us, but they're like, Jerry's there. So Jerry wants, start shooting his 2 bullets. And there's bodyguards around the boss. And they're just their bodies, basically, just to keep them from being able to focus right on the boss. And he has his own little plan. And he's like holding this remote in his hand. He's like, blah, 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 giving a speech. Just holding this remote ready, where you need to press a button. And Jerry's like, well, I fire my gun right at him. And the GM looks at him like, really? And Jerry's like, yeah, just shoot him right now. Just take him out. He'll be gone. And so the GM's like, all right, roll it. Jerry, Snake Eyes. But even with Snake Eyes, with the poor accuracy of that gun, and just how crap like a lot of the stats were, and how good the boss's stats were, he was like, oh, that's a good roll. Let's see what you do. He rolls. GM botches the roll. So you got basically nat 20 against a 1. With basically your 2-shot cannon that couldn't hit for shit against one of the big bosses. And just the dice rolls just switched it around. So Jerry basically kicks in this door, is like, die, motherfucker! Boom! And just catches the guy right in the chest. Just destroys the entire boss encounter for the GM. But as he's falling, he presses that button. Remember those points that I gave him for that weapon that I didn't know what it did? And this is my story area, basically, where my story comes to light. All of a sudden, this weapon starts to, like, vibrate as I'm still yelling. And just turns into this mech suit, just this body mech suit all around me. But it's supposed to respond to like the user, like the remote user, but he presses it and then he dies, so it's just going berserk. And guess who's directly in front of me right now? The fiance, because I'm yelling at her. And he showed me what the stats were like, and my stats went way up, like mid boss, high, like. Not as high as, like, say, like one of the bosses, but pretty fucking high. I hit something, it left a dent. So, it immediately starts swinging at her. And the GM turns to me and goes, now, there's no one really controlling it, it's just going berserk. And you're still in it. So you have one of 3 options. Okay. Well, you can kind of try and resist against what it's doing, which will lower its stats a bit to make it easier for the party. Okay. You can let your body go limp, save yourself from possible injury, and stats stay the same. Okay. Or you can put your force into the attacks and use your rolls against the party. Look at her. Fucked up my story. Pick up the dice. We're gonna add some dice rolls to this. And it went from this guy being the boss character to me being the boss character, and I'm all for it. Unfortunately, she just had great rolls, and she didn't die. Because that's my only thing. I just wanted her to die. And he allowed me to keep the suit focused on her, just keep attacking her. But fuck, she didn't die, which pissed me off. Because that means she would still get in the way of the party and my story. And they eventually, like, beat the suit, and for the last couple games, I would shout, like, a keyword and do, like, magical anime transformation, would turn into the giant mech suit, for so long a period of time. And that was kind of cool, but I was always kind of pissed that I never actually learned my character's story. And that actually kept me from playing in another campaign up until... Oh, goodness, what was the next campaign I played? Because I skipped their next Bezin campaign. Because I didn't want to play in it again. I think the next campaign I played was one I ran, which had no serious focus at all. That'll be the next story. But till then, that was my first campaign. Hope you enjoyed that for whatever it's worth.